Why is the rifle bayonet bad? Is it the other weapons outclassing it, or is it because of its downsides? Well, let's see if that's true. But first let's talk about one of its many reasons as to why it's bad. The rifle is a side grade for the musket, which is made for taking out high health or armored infected, like the Zapper. Or the Zuriser. And the upsides of the rifle are, it has pinpoint accuracy, it penetrates through armor, and it has a faster reload when standing still. But it has some pretty bad downsides, which are, reloading 4 seconds slower than the musket, no bayonet, and the slowest walk speed while reloading. So far the rifle doesn't seem to be bad, which it isn't, it does its job pretty decently well. But the upsides versus the downsides aren't that great. Now let's talk about the sword bayonet, and how terrible it is, versus the other weapon that outclasses it. The sword bayonet is a weaker version of the saber. But it has the ability to be attached to the rifle, turning into the rifle's bayonet. But the problem is the sword bayonet is just worse than the heavy saber, because the heavy saber could take the place of a bayonet in charges without being a worse version of the saber. Now let's talk about the rifle bayonet, and why it gets outclassed by the musket and the heavy saber. Now let's talk about the problems for the rifle bayonet. The first and biggest problem is losing access to your melee. The amount of situations where you could have been way better off with a melee and not the rifle bayonet, just makes this downside so terrible. The second problem is its lack of range, like the range for the rifle bayonet is worse than the heavy saber, which is concerning. The third problem is, its charging hitbox, it has the worst charging hitbox in the game. And the only upside to it versus the heavy saber, it has the ability to join in holdouts, which isn't worth the downsides at all. And you could just use the musket, which has none of these problems, which really sucks for the rifle and the sword bayonet. It's like the rifle bayonet was built to fail in the first place. In conclusion, the rifle bayonet sucks because it forces you to use a decent weapon and the third worst melee in the game for it. And the other weapons that outclass it are just the final nail in the coffin for it. But I thought about 2 buff ideas for it. The first one is when you attach the sword bayonet into the rifle you get access to a pocket knife as your melee. The stats for it are just the exact same as the stake, but it has a 2.0 headshot damage multiplier and it doesn't apply the puncture debuff. And for the second buff idea, the rifle bayonet now has 2 penetration, but the second penetration does 45 damage and not the full 65 damage the rifle bayonet has.